Welcome to my channel. Today I am going to walk you through building your very first Blazor WebAssembly application step by step. Blazor WebAssembly allows you to build interactive web applications using C# instead of JavaScript. This tutorial is perfect for beginners, so let's get started. First, we need to set up our development environment. Namely, first, we need to install .NET SDK. Second, need to install Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. Ensure you select the latest stable version for the best experience. The great news is that you can download all necessary resources from a single page. Open your browser and navigate to this page. This is the .NET SDK download page. You can download the .NET SDK by clicking this download button. Actually, this is the latest version and it has been released on July 9, 2024. Ensure you select the latest version. From this .NET download page, download SDK for your operating system, for example, Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. Follow the installation instructions provided on this page. Restart your computer if prompted after installation. Still on the same page, look for the Visual Studio section. Just scroll down. Okay, here we go. We have Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code download links here. If you prefer to download Visual Studio, please use this link. If you prefer to use Visual Studio Code, please download it from here. For Visual Studio, ensure you select the ASP.NET and the web development workload during installation. If you are going to use Visual Studio Code, also install the C# extension from the extension marketplace. Installing these tools might take few minutes, so be patient. Once installed, make sure to restart your computer if prompted. Now Visual Studio 2022 is being launched. Now that our environment is set up, let's create a new Blazor WebAssembly project. Create a new project. We have many templates here. Since this time we are going to create Blazor WebAssembly project, therefore first let's look for it. Enter Blazor. Now all Blazor related templates have been displayed here. We are going to create Blazor WebAssembly standalone app. Therefore I just select this, then click Next. The first item is project name. You can name your project anything you like. Make sure the project path doesn't contain any spaces or special characters to avoid potential issues. This time I am going to name the project my first Blazor app. Then we have location. The location looks good. Finally, we have solution name. Actually, the project name and the solution name are the same. Then click Next. The first item is framework. Because this is the latest version, we are going to use this and leave it as is. The second item is authentication type. Let's look at this. We have two authentication types here. The first one is individual accounts. The second one is Microsoft Identity Platform. This time I am going to leave it as is, namely going to select none. Then we have several checkboxes here. The first one is configure for HTTPS. Second one is progressive web application. The third one is include sample pages. The fourth one is don't use top level statements. Since this is the first application, at present I am going to check out this. Then I am going to leave this checkbox as is, since we are going to need some sample pages. With this settings, let's create the application. Click create. Now the application is being created. We have successfully created the Blazor WebAssembly project. The project name is My First Blazor App. We have here several folders and several files. Let's take a look at the project structure to understand the files and the folders we will be working with. We have a folder here, www.root. This folder contains static files like CSS, JavaScript, and images. Actually, this is the only one public folder inside this application. First, let's look at it. Inside the folder, we have a CSS subfolder. Then we have a sample data subfolder as well. First, let's see this. Inside this, we have a app.css. Actually, this is the CSS file for this application. Namely, this is the CSS file for this application. Then we also use Bootstrap CSS file. Therefore, we have Bootstrap subfolder. Let's look at it. Then we have a bootstrap.min and a .css. Actually, this is the Bootstrap CSS's mini version. Just like this. Then mini version. Okay. Then we have here a sample data subfolder. Let's look at this. Inside this folder, we have weather.json. Namely, we have a JSON file here. Inside the JSON file, it looks like we have some date and a temperature and a summary. Namely, we have weather-related data inside this JSON file. Then we have here some images, for example, icons, image files. Finally, we have here index.html. Actually, this is the only one HTML file inside this application, because this application is single page application. Namely, Blazor WebAssembly is a single page application. Therefore, this is the only HTML file inside this application. Okay, inside this www.root folder, we just seen that all files are static files. For example, CSS, JSON, image files, and HTML file. Namely, www.root folder contains static files like CSS, JavaScript, image files, and JSON files or HTML file. If you have a static file which related to this application, or if you have a static asset which related to this application, you may put it here inside this application. But please note that, as I mentioned previously, this is the only public folder inside this application. Namely, www.root folder is the only public folder inside the application. Therefore, please don't place your security, namely application security related file, in this folder, because this is a public folder. Then we have a layout folder here. Inside the layout folder, we have main layout, and then we have navigation menu.razor. Actually, this is the main layout component. This is the navigation menu component. Namely, Blazor applications are component-based application or component-based architecture. Everything is component inside the Blazor application. Therefore, main layout is also a component. Navigation menu actually is a component. We will explain this kind of components later, but at present, the main layout is just layout for this application. And this navigation menu.razor is a component just displaying side menu. We will see later. Then we have a pages folder here. Inside the pages folder, we have counter.razor, home.razor, and weather.razor. Actually, these three files are pages. Later, we will explain it, or later we will give more detailed explanation about the component and about the Razor pages. Then we have a underscore import Razor file here. Actually, this is a reference file. Namely, if we reference something, we may reference it here and we can use it across the application. Therefore, underscore imports.razor file is very important, and we can put any reference file inside this Razor file. We have an app.razor file here. Actually, this file sets up router for this application. This is where the router component is configured, which maps URL to the real components. We have a main layout here. We just saw that the main layout is inside the layout folder. Actually, this is the layout file for this application. If you have a custom layout file, we can replace it with this main layout. Namely, in Blazor, we can use your custom layout file. If you create a custom layout, and you can replace it with the main layout, and your application will display your custom layout. Finally, we have a program.cs file. Actually, this is the entry point of this application. Namely, the application is starting from here. First, we create the builder. Then we add some services or configure services. For example, we are adding HTTP client service here. Then we build it. Then finally, we run it here. So therefore, this file is the entry point of this application, and this application is starting from this page. Now we have explained related folders and some files. Before we start coding, let's run the application to see the default template in action. You may press F5, then the application will be run. Before that, we have some list of some browser here. You may choose Firefox, you may choose Google, or you may choose Microsoft Edge. Based on your selection, and you can run this application. When you run this application, your default web browser will open, and you will see the Blazor WebAssembly default template with a home page, a counter page, and a fetch data page. Let's run it now. Here we go. The application has been launched. Okay. The default template provides a simple example of navigation. This is the navigation. We have home and the counter page, and we have weather pages. In this template, we have data binding. For example, if I click this, and the count will be displayed here. Actually, this is data binding. Then we have fetching data. Namely, we have a JSON file inside this application. In that JSON file, we have some weather-related data. Now we are displaying it on the UI. So therefore here, via fetch on data. Now let's create a new component and see how Blazor WebAssembly works. In general, components or pages will be added in the pages folder. Therefore, let's add the new component or this new page to the pages folder. Right click on the pages folder, then select add. After that, select razor component because we are going to create razor component. Therefore, click this razor component, then add appropriate name. Let's name it hello world. Hello world.razor. Then add. Now we have created our component. This is a simple razor component. Let's see here, hello world.razor. Namely, this is a razor file. Actually, we are going to create a razor page. Then we are going to display that page in the side menu of this application. In order to do so, we need to add page directive at the top of this component. Thus, we can display this component on the side menu of this application. Namely, then we need to add a router here. Now we have an add page directive, then we have added our router. We call this add page directive, then we call this /hello world as a router. By adding this add page directive at the top of this file, we are specifying that this component should be accessible via this /hello world URL or route. In general, Blazor component or page includes two parts, namely the HTML part and the C# code part. In the HTML code part, we can display data, we can display messages, and we can display buttons or HTML related elements. Namely, we can display all DOM elements. Then in the C# code portion or C# code part, we can write our application's logic or our business logic. Namely, in razor files, we can mix HTML and C# codes efficiently. Now, let's edit this component. Then let's add some message as well. Save this. Now we have added page directive and the route, then added a title, hello Blazor, then added a message, welcome to my first Blazor WebAssembly app. Now let's display the hello world page on the side menu. Now I am calling this as a page because we just added a page directive. Previously we have seen that we have a navigation menu inside this layout folder. Namely, we have a navigation menu razor file here. Inside this file, let's see it. We have a home, then we have counter, we have other pages. Namely, we have 3 pages here. Then let's see here, pages folder, we have home, counter, and then corresponding weather.razor files here. Therefore, let's see this counter page. For example, in the counter page at top portion, we have add page directive, then /counter. In the case of weather page, samely we have add page directive, then we have /weather. Namely, we have page directive, then we have router here. Therefore, we just added at page, then we have added our router here. Therefore, we can call this page just like home or just like weather or counter page in the side menu bar. Okay, let's do that. This is the menu because we have 3 menu here, and this is the navigation link. This is a built-in component in the Blazor WebAssembly. By using this, we can navigate from page to page in the Blazor applications. Therefore, first I just copy this. I just copy this and paste it here. Then just copy our route, new route, and replace it with this one. Because href element, then we assign it the new route to the href element. Then I just put here the new title, namely Hello World. Okay, this is the menu, display menu. This is the href. We just assign it our new route Hello World here. We just using this icon in the weather menu. Therefore, let's use a new icon here. We have some icons here. Let's use Enjoy the Field navigation menu. Okay, now save this. We have implemented the new menu. Namely, we are calling our Hello World page in the side menu. Now let's run the application, see the result. Okay, hopefully we will see Hello Blazor, then we will see some information. Welcome to my first Blazor WebAssembly. Here we go. Now the application is running. Previously we have 3 pages here or 3 menus here, namely home, counter, and weather. Now a new Hello World menu has been added on the side menu. If I click this Hello World, I am expecting to see Hello Blazor, then just expecting to see some message, welcome to my first Blazor WebAssembly app. Let's click this. Okay, here we go. Hello Blazor. Then we have information, namely we have some message, welcome to my first Blazor WebAssembly app. Okay, now we have completed this simple component. Now let's summarize this. First, I have created our simple component hello world.razor. In the second step, I have added add page directive. Then hello world route. This is the add page directive because we are going to display this component as a page in the side menu. Therefore, we just added add page directive. Then we added hello world here. Actually, this is the new route, namely our side menu. When we click this menu, by using this route, this menu, namely this navigation menu component, will map this menu to the actual component or actual page file, namely this actual page. Then we have added title and some messages to display in the page. We just mentioned that in Blazor applications, the Blazor pages or the Blazor files includes 2 parts. The first part is HTML and the second part is C# code portion. In Razor files, we can mix HTML and C# codes very efficiently. Later, we will see that in actual examples, practical examples. Now, we have completed the first simple component and we have been called the component as a page on the side menu. Okay, in the following section, we will talk about data binding and event handling. Let's add some data binding and event handling to our component. First, I just clear this. In the previous section, I mentioned that the Blazor component includes two parts. The first part is HTML, the second part is C# code portion. First, let's add one variable in the C# code portion. Private. Then let me add another variable message. I have added two variables. The first one is name, the second one is message. First, let's add one input, then let's add another button. When we input some message or some name to the input, then if we click a button, then a message will be show up in the UI. Let's do that. We are going to show data binding in the Blazor. In Blazor, data binding will be achieved by using @bind, because we are going to bind the input name to the variable name. Namely, we are going to bind that input name to this variable. Therefore, I just enter name here. Then let's add one placeholder here. When I input my name, then I will bind that input name to this name variable. This is the data binding directive in Blazor applications or Razor files. As I mentioned previously, when I click a button, the message, namely the input name, will be show up in the UI. Therefore, first I need to add one button here. Click me. Then we know that button has on-click event. When we click this button, a message will be called. Namely, now we are at the event handler. Therefore, I just mentioned the event name, show message. Now I need to define this show message. When I click this click me button, this show message will be called. Then a message will be displayed on the UI. For example, let's display it just here. Message. Then let's implement this one. Just copy this, because we are going to assign that message, this message variable. Hello. That's it. Let's explain what we did here. First, we have add one input and show enter your name. This is a placeholder. After someone enter his or her name, and that name will be bind to this name variable inside the C# code portion. In Blazor, in order to bind the data, we use this @bind directive. Because we have this @bind directive, when we enter a name, that entered name will be bound to this variable name. Okay, this is good. If we click a button, because every button has on-click event, a message will be called. This is the message. This message will be called when we click this click me button. Then that message has been assigned to this message variable. We have a message variable here. In order to show that message variable, we also show the bind data. This is also binded because we are adding @mark in front of this variable. We can get access the content of this message variable. Namely, the content is hello someone. Okay, now we have completed our simple component, namely simple page. Inside this page, we have one input, then we have a message display, then we have a button click. When we click this button, a message will be displayed in the UI. Let's see that. First, let's just save this. Okay, it will be shown here. First, let's enter name, then click this, and the hello John Doe will be show up. Okay, hello John Doe has been displayed here. Therefore, in the Blazor, we can very easily achieve data binding and event calling. Blazor's add bind directive simplifies data binding but automatically updating the value of the bound variable when input changes. Therefore, in Blazor, data binding and event handling is very straightforward and is very powerful, and the process is simplified. Now let's see dependency injection in Blazor web applications. Blazor WebAssembly supports dependency injection, which allows us to manage dependencies in a clean and efficient way. Let's see how to use dependency injection to inject a service in the Blazor WebAssembly. In order to keep this simple, let me clear this all. Okay, then also clear this one. Okay, now save this. Okay, I just clear it. This is our component or page. Okay, now let's work on the dependency injection. I just stopped the application and cleared our component in order to keep it as simple. First, let's add a services folder. Add a class name because service is a class. Therefore, we just add a class. Let's name it Greeting Services. Okay, Greeting Service. This is the service class. Let's add a method. Let's say it. Okay, now we have created a greeting service. Inside the service, we also created a method, namely getGreeting. Then this getGreeting method will return a message, hello from greeting service. Now we have a service here. Then in the next step, we are going to inject this service and use this service across this application. In order to do that, first we need to register this service in the program.cs file. Go to the program.cs file. Let's add it as a singleton service, meaning we can use this singleton service across the application. Of course, all services add scooped or add singleton or add transient, we can use across the application, but its lifetime, its life cycle is different. Later, we will give some explanation about the service life cycle in the Blazor web applications. Now, let's add the new service as a singleton. Return service. That's it. We just added this greeting service as singleton. Save this. Now we are able to use this greeting service across the application because we just register it in the program.cs file as a singleton service. Now let's go to our component and going to use the service we just added. Okay, therefore In order to use service, we need to inject the service inside that page or that application. In Blazor, we can inject services by using @inject directory. Before injecting the service here, we need to do one thing. Namely, in the _imports.razor file, we need to reference the newly added services. Therefore, go to here, because we just added a new folder here, services folder. Therefore, we need to add this services folder, or we need to reference this services folder inside this _imports.razor file. Therefore, just using my first app dot services. That's it. Then save this. Now we can use this greeting service, or we can inject this greeting service very easily. For example, @inject greeting service. Here we go. Then just name it greeting service. Okay, now we can use this greeting service inside this component or this page. Okay, let's use this. Let's see it. We have a title here. Then let's add some message here. For example, previously we added it. When we create our service, let's see our service, we have a message here. Inside the service, we have a message here, get greetings. When we call this get greetings method, it should return hello from greetings service. Okay, let's do that. Let's display this message on the UI. Okay, let's do that. Therefore, go to here, then we need to call it. Okay, then because we have this service, and then we just mentioned that when we bind the data or when we display data, always use @ in front of that variable or that service or that object. Therefore, we just copy this and @ just put it here. Actually, this service has a method get data or get greeting, for example. Then that's it. Now we are calling this get greeting method of this get greeting service. Now let's save this, run the application, and see the implementation results. Hopefully we are going to see hello from greeting service in the UI, because we are just calling it here in the UI. Okay, let me click this. Okay, it's loading. Here we go, it's loading. If I click this hello world, I am going to see that message, hello from the greeting service. Okay, hello from greeting service. Welcome to my first Blazor WebAssembly app. We are in the hello world page. Therefore, I just displayed it. In the page, we have a title, hello Blazor. Here we go. Then we have a message, welcome to my first Blazor WebAssembly app. Here we go, this one. And then finally, we are displaying a message from the greeting service, because inside the service, we have a get greeting method. That method is actually hello from greeting service. Okay, now in summary, we have implemented service injection in the Blazor WebAssembly application. Service injection can be achieved or can be done inside the program.cs file. Dependency injection makes it easier to manage and test your services by providing them when needed rather than hard coding them into your components. Register services with appropriate lifetimes. For example, singleton, scoped, or transient. Namely, we can register services in Blazor web applications by using singleton, scoped, and transient. Actually, these three types of services has a little bit difference here. Why we add the services with different lifetimes or different life cycles? Therefore, let's give some information about the service lifetimes. Okay, actually, a singleton service is created the first time it is requested, and then every subsequent request will use the same instance. Therefore, we just call it okay. First, let me copy it just here. Okay. A singleton service is created the first time it is requested, and then every subsequent request will use the same instance. Use singleton services for stateless services or services that maintain state that should be shared across the application. Namely, in the case of singleton service, the use case is use singleton services for stateless services or services that maintain state that should be shared across the entire application. Then how about the scoped lifetime? Okay, the scoped service is created once per request or connection. In Blazor WebAssembly, scoped service lifetime is essentially the same as singleton because the client remains connected for the duration of the session. Namely, use scoped services for services that use it within a single user session but do not need to be shared across a session. Then, finally, a transient service is created each time it is requested. Use transient services for lightweight, stateless services that do not maintain state between calls. For example, use transient services for lightweight, stateless services that do not maintain state between calls. For example, if we have a database connection, namely, if we have a SQL connection service, at that time, we may use transient service. We may add the service as a transient service. Because, as just mentioned here, stateless services that do not maintain state between calls. In summary, in Blazor, we can register services in three types of lifetimes. The first one is add singleton, second one is add scoped, and the third one is as transient. By understanding these differences and using appropriate service lifetime, you can manage the dependencies in your Blazor application more effectively. Now let's call a web API in our Blazor WebAssembly application. First, let me clear here because I am going to keep this application very simple and easy to understand. Therefore, I just remove this one because we add it later. Therefore, and this was default. Therefore, I don't delete it. Then I also remove this lines. Okay, now save this. This is previous. Okay, program files, Blazor files. Blazor WebAssembly can also call web APIs. let's see how to fetch data from a public API and display it in our application. We will use the JSON placeholder API, which provides fake data for testing purpose. Therefore, I just cleaned up this program.cs file. Later, I will add a service here. Now, first, let's see the JSON placeholder API. This is the JSON placeholder API. Namely, the URL is https JSON placeholder.typecode then .posters. There are some posters. We are going to display it. Let's see it in JSON format. Okay, so there we have this kind of JSON. This is an array. Inside this array, we have some data. Namely, we have user ID, then we have ID, then we have title, then we have body. Namely, this is a post. We are going to display user ID, then going to display title, and let's display body as well. Therefore, first we need to create one post objects. Inside the post objects, at least we should have three properties, namely user ID, title, and body. Now, first let's create that object. In order to create object, let's create a modules folder. Then inside this folder, let's create the class or object. Post. Then we should have user ID, title, and the body. Okay, then that's it. Just save this. Now we have our post object. In order to use this post object across the application, as I mentioned previously, we need to add this pass to the underscore imports razor file. Just copy this, go to here. That's it. Now we can use this object across the application. Then, in the second step, we are going to create a service because we are going to get data from a public web API. In order to get that, first we need to create a service. Then we register the service inside the program files, program.cs files. Then inject the service in our page. Finally, we are going to get data and display that data in the page. Therefore, now we just created our object, post object. In the second step, we are going to create a service. Let's create a post service. Because we have a service folder here, let's create here. Service is a class, therefore, okay, because inside this service, we are going to get data from a public web API. Therefore, we need to use HTTP client. Now, we are going to inject it. Okay, we have injected HTTP client. Then assign it this underscore HTTP client. Now, let's create a method, namely get post async. Because we are going to get post array. Let's say it get posters async. Just like that. Okay, inside this method, we just get data from the public web API because we just use it async. Therefore, we need to return data, or we need to return that data by using await. We have this HTTP service here because we are going to get data as JSON format. Our data is JSON format. Therefore, we can use this get from JSON async. Get from JSON async. And then we have here post array. Now just copy it here from here, then just paste it. Okay, that's it. We have some error here. Let's see the error. Why we have some error here? Okay, we just find it because this should be post object, not post service. Okay, now save this. We have created our post service. Inside the post service, we have a method, namely get posts async. When we call this method, we will get data as an array. Therefore, we are returning post array. Okay, save this. In the third step, now we have created post service. We need to call, or we need to register this service in the program dossiers. Just copy this in case and go to program dossiers. Just add here build the services. That's it. Save this. Now we can use this post service, we just created it, across the application. It's that simple. Save this again. Okay, now we have created our post object, then we created post service. Inside the post service we have got post async method, and then finally we have registered this post service inside the program.cs file, because this program.cs file is the entry point or starting point of this application. Therefore, we just registered the service. We can use this service across the application. Now, we have services. In the next step, we are going to create a page, namely a component. Inside that component, we are going to get data by using this service, then display it in the page or display it inside that component, and call that component or page on the side menu bar. Now let's create a component. Let's name that component fetch posts. Okay, because we have here pages folder, just right click, add, and select the razor component. Let's name it fetch post. Fetch posts. Okay. Now we have created our component. This is a very simple component because we are going to display this component inside the menu. Therefore, we need to add page directive along with the router. Page, then fetch posts. We are going to get data from a public web API. Then, in order to call that public web API, we just created our post service, and then we have registered it inside the program.cs file. Actually, after we registered it, we can use it across the application. Now we are going to use that service inside this component. Therefore, first we need to inject it. Namely, we need to inject this service to this component or to this page. We can inject it by using @inject directory. @inject, the service name is post service. That's it. Now we can use this service. We know that inside this service, we have a get data method. We have a get post async. We get all posters. So therefore, first save this. Now inside the C# code portion, let's declare one post array, because we are going to get all posters as an array. In case this is null, then let's override uninitialized async, because once this page is loaded, data should be available. Because we just used async, therefore we should use await, namely post, then await. We have post services. We just injected it. Inside the service, we have a method, just post async. That's it. Now, in the posters array, we have the all posters data. Therefore, now we can display this data in the HTML code portion. Okay. Therefore, we just edit this posters. Then, first, we need to check this one. If this posters is null, at that time, we just show some message. For example, loading. Therefore, first we need to check that. If post okay. If the post is null, we just show loading. If not, we are going to display data in the table, because we have, let's see here, we have user ID, title, and body. We have 3 items here. Therefore, we just display it. I just prepared it. We are going to display it in the table. Therefore, I just paste it. Title, body. I need to add here user ID, for example. Just add it, user ID. Okay. Now, let's also add it in the loop. Just here, user ID. That's it. Now we have a table. First, we just create its header, user ID, title, body. Then corresponding data will be displayed as rows here by using this loop. Okay, now save this. Let's see it. Let's check it again. First, we have created this component or this page, added the page directory, then added the fetch post routes. This is the route of this page. Then we have injected our post services. After we have injected service, we declared one variable. Then by using the uninitialized async method, we get data by using our post service just created, because we have a get post async method inside our service. After we get the data, first we check the data. If null, we just showing loading ... If not null, if there is a data at that time, we just display it by using a table, HTML table. Therefore, we can see here that this is the C# code. Basically, here we are getting data, and then this is the HTML part of this page. We are displaying data. Now, save this, because finally we are going to display this page on the side menu. Now we have router, this router for this page. Therefore, we just copy it. We just call this router in the navigation menu, because previously we just saw that we can call a page on the side menu by using its route. Okay, now let's go to there, because we have navigation menu here. Then okay, we have here one built-in component inside the Blazor applications navigation link. That link has href property. Therefore, I just copy this, paste it here, then just cut this, replace with this. Now I just assign it the href element to the fetch posts. Then let's change it here, posts. Okay, now we are displaying an icon here because this icon is being used in the hello world. Therefore, let's replace a new icon here. Okay, let's use this. Okay, let's use this chart. Okay, now we have completed our page. Now let me run this application and see the result. The data will be displayed in the post page. Now we have post page. If I click this, hopefully post data will be displayed here. Okay, it's great. We have displayed the data. Okay, now this is the ID, user ID. For example, this is the first user. Here, first user has several posts. Then this is the second user. Second user also has several posts. The third user also has several posts here. Therefore, we just display it, user ID, title, and the body. This is the content of the post. Each post has some kind of contents here, and then this is the title of the posts. This is this is the user ID. Therefore, this is repeating. This means that the first user has several posts here. Therefore, this is displaying just like this 1, 1, 1. Then it's displaying the second user, and so on. Okay. In summary, in the section first, I just create a model, namely post model. In the post model, we have user ID, title, and the body property. Then we created a service, namely post service. Inside the post service, first we just declared HTTP client, and then we injected HTTP client. By using HTTP client, we are getting the data from the public web API JSON placeholder. Inside this JSON placeholder, we have posts. Therefore, just we are going to display this posts. Therefore, we just use the posts endpoint here. This is the endpoint of posts inside this public web API. Then, in the third step, I just registered that service in the program.cs. Just here, we just registered it. After this, we can use this service across this application. In order to use this service inside a component or inside a page, we need to inject it. First, we register it. Then we need to inject in the specific components or specific pages where we are going to use this service. Therefore, we create a page here, namely fetch posts page. First, we added add page directory at top of the file because this will be a page in the future. For example, we are going to call it on the side menu. Then we just injected our service. Now we can use this service. Namely, inside the C# code portion, first we declared one post object, post array. Then by using the uninitialized async method, we just get the data, namely the post data. By using the post services, get post async method. Now we have data inside this posts array. Therefore, first we check it. If null, we just show loading ... If it is not null, we are displaying it using a table. Inside the table, we just declared user ID, title, and body. Then in the loop, because we are using this @mark, and then when we use in the razor file, we just after this @mark, we can use the C#. Finally, we just call our page in the side menu because we have a navigation menu here. Then just copy this, and then we have created one menu. The name is post, and then this menu has href property. In the href property, we just mentioned that fetch posts because this fetch post is a route in our page. It's our route here. It's a route. Therefore, this navigation menu, when this click it, by using this fetch and this menu navigation link, we will map the actual component, actual page. This is actual. Okay, therefore now we have completed our page. It works great. Blazor components can be styled using CSS. Let's add some styles to our components. For example, we have a button here, click me button. First, let's create a CSS class. For example, custom button, then implement that class to this click me button. Okay, let's do that. Previously, I have mentioned that, first, I need to stop this. Previously, I have mentioned that we have a www root folder here. This is the public folder, and we can place here some static files just like CSS. Therefore, let's add a CSS style file here, just inside this CSS folder. Therefore, add, then new item, style sheet. Let me name it just style. Actually, I have prepared a custom button class, CSS class. Therefore, first I clear this, then I just copy that class, paste it here. This is my custom CSS class. Save it. In order to use this style.css, I need to register it in the index.html page. Therefore, come here and just like this. Just copy this because it's in the same place. Just copy this and paste it here. Instead of this, I just change it to style. That's it. Now save it. Now I can use my style.css across the application because I have linked it inside the index.html file. Now let's use it. Now let's go to this file. For example, inside this file, we have this custom button class. Just copy it. Let's implement it counter. Then instead of this button primary, let's use that. Before that, I should run this application. First, we see the original one. Then let's see the new one. Therefore, I just launch the application. Let's see this counter. The counter is primary button here now. Then let's change that. Okay. Now let's replace this with the custom button. I just replace it. Just save it. Let me stop this. Run this again. Primary button. Let me change the background red in order to see easily. It changed it red now. Or if I change it to blue violet, for example, it changed it. Therefore, if I change it to yellow, it will change it yellow. Okay, we just change it the background, it's changed it immediately. Meaning, we can use our custom stylus in the Blazor WebAssembly applications very easily. The process is, first we need to create that custom CSS file, then we need to call it or we need to link it inside the index.html, just like this. After that, we can use the style across the application. Now that we should restore this one, we should restore, save this, we just restored it. Okay, that's it. Congratulations. Until now, you have built first Blazor WebAssembly app. This is our first Blazor WebAssembly app. We covered setting up environment, creating a project, building components, data binding, dependency injection, calling a public web API, adding some routing, and vice versa. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Blazor content. Happy coding!